everyone, this is Sana Kori, Taino Radio. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, you can always download old shows at tainoradio.com. And we have some old shows there from Block Talk Radio. And from right here, Taino Strong 1491. Today I want to go back to the beginning 1492. And then I'm going to go to the beginning, 7000 BC. And then I'm going to peck away little by little in these future shows so you can enjoy both the past, the present, and discuss a little bit about the future of our culture, Taino culture. But in 1492, you won't read this in the history books, but you will hear it here in Taino Radio. In 1492, this is when the world experienced the First World War. As you study in global history in many of the universities and colleges, wherever you go, wherever you went, they will tell you that the First World War did not happen in 1492. But I'm going to tell you here in Taino Radio that yes, it happened in 1492. This is when the European invasion occurred in the West, the Western Hemisphere, where it was homes of millions of indigenous communities. And it all began in the Caribbean Sea, in the beautiful islands that we know as Haiti, Quisqueya, Jamaica, Borinquen, and eventually the smaller Antilles Islands, South America, and then North America. So this European invasion, according to Europeans, it was a great discovery led by Christopher Columbus, and they called this discovery of a new world. And these people from Europe brought tremendous religious bigotry and cultural bias. Even though in the beginning, when you read the journal of Christopher Columbus, and we're going to look at that in the future, but basically, generally, looking at a man who was very happy that he discovered a whole new world. But with that came bigotry and bias, and also a new worldview that we call the materialistic worldview led by the Europeans. So this invasion, before the bullets, before the swords, one of the greatest weapons used against our people was the materialistic worldview, that these humans were actually the ones who were the masters of the universe. They were the guardians, because in their worldview, anything that was material was open game to control, to conquer. Now, this came head-on collision with the indigenous worldview of an appreciation of the earth as mother, an appreciation of life all around us, or all around our ancestors, that was filled with life, filled with meaning. And they understood this for thousands of years. And this was basically the clash of materialistic worldview versus a natural, nature-centered worldview. And this was what at stake in World War I. The clash between the material versus the natural. So basically, they came with a plan, and the plan was to change the way of life of the indigenous Caribbean people. If you're a Taino or indigenous Caribbean, these are our ancestors experienced this for the first time against a European invasion. And of course, this change in the way of life, the worldview, was spread to South America, Central America, and eventually to North America. So our ancestors were seen as a source of labor, a source of making money, and also a pleasure due to sex trade, human trafficking, exploitation. This materialistic worldview was rooted in our ancestors being a source of material goods and to gain more power through these goods. Also, the religious bigotry led them to understand that our people, after the great debates against Bartolomé de las Casas versus Juan Sepúlveda, which we're going to talk about in the future as well, once it was confirmed through the Spanish courts and through the church that the Taino ancestors were in fact human beings, and as we know, this was never an argument, but because they wanted to create this image as our ancestors as being animals that can be used as a source of labor, property. But this just was not understood, or the conclusion did not reach that level. So basically, the Taino, our ancestors, were human beings, which led to another can of worms. Why? Because now our ancestors were seen as potential converts to Christianity, and this led a huge war between the materialistic versus the nature or natural worldview. And then, of course, the bottom line in all of this invasion was the accumulation of wealth. Originally, Columbus was given the opportunity and the power to discover a new trade route centered on food. Food was very crucial at that point. But what did we have? What did our ancestors receive? They received a gold quota. And if that quota was not fulfilled, hands were cut, tongues were cut, noses were cut. So loyalty became wealth to the Spanish crown. As later on, Columbus will attest, 20% of wealth will go to him, but that did not happen. Even his family sued for that 20%, and that did not happen. The imperialism of the Spanish invasion caused millions of people, of our ancestors, to die because of the gold. Folks like Juan Esquivel, Ponce de Leon, Cortez, Pizarro, and so on, they became millionaires in their time, killing our ancestors for this gold. So that is World War I. So just to summarize, this European invasion, for them, it was a discovery, a new world that can be exploited through religious bigotry, cultural bias, and a worldview that did decimate many of our people, this materialistic worldview. It also tempted a lot of the leaders to go on their side for power and for wealth. But our worldview was one of nature and honoring nature as our mother, honoring the cosmos as sacred. So that's what was at stake in this First World War. Now let's fast forward 2022. The human race is racing against climate change, Antarctica melting, violence, the streets, disease, viruses, inflation. The materialistic worldview is taking a huge dent in their armor. So this natural worldview is once again being asked to rise up to go against this materialistic worldview. This war is not over yet. And this is where a lot of people who are centered in a European worldview or European historical worldview totally miss the picture. So yeah, we go to schools, we learn about European history, we go to universities, we learn about European history, we learn about this invasion known as the conquest of the Americas. We all know that's BS. So now it's time. Now that this materialistic worldview is destroying the earth, our mother, it is up to us as indigenous peoples to rise and to say BS is BS. It's time to appreciate, it's time to understand that we are all connected. European schools, American schools, they call it quantum physics. We call it we are all related. And we knew this for thousands of years about the relationships. You know, when you look at the creation stories throughout North America, South America, Caribbean, there's always animals leading the way or being major forces. And the Taino was our turtle mother. Our first mother was a turtle. To this day, we honor the moon cycles. We honor the turtle itself. Traditional Caribbean homes still have turtles, and they have free reign in the apartment or home. Why is that? Because humans are not here to conquer, to control. We are not guardians. We're relatives. Let me repeat that again. We are not stewards. We are not guardians. We are relatives of all life on earth, our mother. So I'd like to stop there and just reflect on this First World War. It's not based on European history, it's based on human history. We are Homo sapien with some percentage of Neanderthal blood, DNA. We're humans. We're humans. And yes, we do live in a materialistic world, but for us, it's just more than material. It's also rooted in the natural order of things. And with that comes ethics and moral obligations. This is what we're about as indigenous people. We are indigenous to the land, indigenous to our mother. And we have relatives. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. If you have any questions, you can always write me at Taino Radio 1491 at gmail.com. That's Taino Radio 1491 at gmail.com. You can also look me up on www.tainoradio.com. Send me a message there as well. If you want to come on the show, I'm requesting some listeners to come on in, write me, and we'll sit down and we'll chat. What's important to you in this Taino history or Indigenous-Caribbean history? So right now, I just wanted to review this First World War that happened in our islands. Thank you so much. Blessings. Bo Watukan.